Imagine your newest employee just automatically approved this massive corporate loan to a shell company.
Oh, wow. Yeah, terrifying.
Right. And you have absolutely no idea why they did it. And worse, under the newly enforced EUAI Act, you, as a business leader, are personally and legally liable for that decision.
Which is just a massive wake-up call.
Exactly. And that terrifying scenario, that is the actual operational reality for about 78% of European enterprises currently piloting autonomous AI agents. That's according to a 2024 Gartner survey.
Yeah, 78%. That's huge.
It's massive. Volume, like that means this isn't some fringe experiment anymore, you know. It is the new standard of business. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We are looking at the AetherLink 2026 Readiness Guide on AI agents and enterprise governance, and we were diving deep into how you prevent those agents from, well, triggering massive product recalls or complete market exclusion.
Yeah, and we really have to ground this in the immediate timeline you're facing. Like, look at the calendar. Today is March 17, 2026. The January 2026 enforcement deadline for high-risk systems under the EUAI Act, it's already passed.
It's in the rearview mirror.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is no longer some future theoretical problem that you can just casually table for next quarter strategy meeting. It is a present, legally binding reality.
Yeah.
There is this great quote from a 2024 Forrester report in our sources that frames this perfectly. They said, "Governance is no longer optional, it is competitive advantage."
I love that framing.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to look at the exact mechanisms you need to transition your AI from risky, isolated experiments into compliant, scalable, agent-first operations.
And to understand why governance is suddenly this, like, hair-on-fire critical issue, we really need to look at how the technology itself fundamentally changed over the last 2 years.
Oh, totally. The shift has been wild.
Because traditional large language models,
Yeah.
the chat interfaces we all got used to, they simply aren't delivering the return on investment at enterprise scale.
Right. People are realizing they're just glorified search engines sometimes.
Yeah, and that Gartner data shows 43% of enterprises are shifting to what they call agentic AI by the fourth quarter of 2026.
Which is a huge leap.
It is. To put the difference in perspective, a traditional LLM is essentially a brilliant intern. You can ask them a complex market question, and they will write you a fantastic, highly detailed memo.
But they bring it back to your desk for approval before anything actually happens.
Exactly. An agentic AI, though, that is an intern that you've handed a corporate credit card, API access to your back-end systems, and the absolute authority to make executive decisions on their own.
Which is terrifying if you don't have guardrails.
Right. They don't just draft the email, they negotiate the vendor contract and sign it. They don't just review the loan application, they approve the funds and initiate the wire transfer.
And what's fascinating here is how the regulatory bodies watched that exact shift in autonomy and recognized the inherent danger immediately.
They didn't mess around.
No, they didn't. The EUAI Act specifically targets that intern with a credit card capability. It classifies autonomous decision-making in certain key sectors as categorically high risk.
So we're talking about what? Financial services?
Yeah, finance running credit decisions, also employment algorithms, screening or rejecting candidates, government benefit allocations, and critical infrastructure like energy grid management.
So heavy stuff.
Very heavy. And for any system operating in those high-risk zones, the Act lays down 4 incredibly strict mandates.
Okay, I want to break those mandates down because they aren't just suggestions or like best practices. They are hard legal requirements that literally change how your engineering teams actually build the software.
Absolutely. So first is the requirement for human oversight. Meaningful human control has to remain throughout the entire decision cycle.
So you can't just set it and forget it.
Exactly. You cannot deploy an autonomous agent, shrug your shoulders when a mistake happens, and say, well, the AI did it. The accountability remains strictly human.
That makes sense. What's the second one?
Second is explainability and transparency. You have to maintain these explainability logs that document the exact pathway the agent took to reason through a problem.
Like why it picked option A over option B.
Right. Third is continuous performance monitoring. You have to prove the AI doesn't experience model drift.
Model drift. Like the AI changing its mind over time.
Sort of, yeah. For example, an AI trained to approve loans in a booming economy might start denying perfectly good applications when inflation rises slightly, simply because its baseline reality has shifted.
Oh, wow. So you have to constantly check its logic against real-world data.
Exactly, in real time. And finally, strict data governance. You need complete traceability of the training data, the validation data, and the live operational data feeding those decisions.
Okay, hearing those 4 mandates laid out like that, it's obvious why 61% of enterprises in a McKinsey survey citing governance complexity as their single biggest barrier to scaling AI.
It's intimidating.
Yeah. It's completely overwhelming. I mean, they are sitting on these incredibly powerful pilots, but they are absolutely paralyzed by the regulatory fear. They know they need governance, but they don't know what good governance actually looks like mechanically.
Right.
So how is the AetherLink guide defining a safe path forward out of that paralysis?
Well, they map it out using an enterprise readiness framework, specifically this 5-level maturity model for agentic AI governance. It basically serves as a diagnostic tool.
Okay, walk me through the levels.
Sure. Level 1 is initial or ad hoc. Think of this as the Wild West. Your AI projects are operating independently in silos, there are no centralized policies, and your compliance risk is at maximum severity.
Sounds like most companies a year ago.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Level 2 is managed. Here you have some basic documented policies, but you still have very limited cross-functional oversight between your tech and legal teams.
They aren't really talking to each other.
Right. The critical threshold is level 3, which is standardized. At this stage, an enterprise framework is fully integrated, AI-led architecture roles are established, and regular audits are institutionalized.
And what are the top 2?
Level 4 is optimized, featuring real-time tracking. And finally, level 5 is intelligent, where governance itself becomes an autonomous, agentic system monitoring your other AI models.
Okay, I have to challenge this, though, because if you are a CTO listening to this, you're probably looking at your internal roadmap and just sweating.
Oh, for sure.
If the EUAI Act requires meaningful human control for every high-risk decision, and level 3 maturity demands all these integrated frameworks and audits, haven't we just killed the exact efficiency we bought the AI for in the first place?
It seems like it, right?
Yeah, like if a human compliance officer has to manually review every single loan the agent processes, why are we paying for the agent at all? This sounds like a massive layer of corporate red tape that is going to completely paralyze engineering velocity.
It's a highly logical fear, but the market data actually proves the complete opposite.
Really?
Yeah. The Capgemini AI Maturity Index from 2024 reveals that only 18% of enterprises have achieved that level 3 maturity, which, remember, is the minimum legal threshold.
Okay.
The organizations stuck down at levels 1 and 2 are the ones moving at a glacial pace. Their engineering velocity is 0 because of regulatory uncertainty.
Oh, because they're terrified to push anything live.
Exactly. They are terrified to push any agent to production because a single hallucination could result in a massive fine. Reaching level 3 actually accelerates deployment because it removes that paralyzing fear.
That makes total sense.
You aren't forcing a human to review every single mundane decision. You are building a framework where the AI handles the bulk of the work autonomously, but flags edge cases for human review based on predefined risk thresholds.
So your engineers aren't just like guessing what is legally safe.
Yeah.
They have a paved, well-lit road to drive on.
Spot on.
So it transforms governance from a roadblock into the actual infrastructure that allows you to scale. And the sources provide a phenomenal real-world example of what that transformation looks like on the ground.
The Amsterdam case study.
Yes. There was a case study of a mid-sized fintech firm based in Amsterdam that was the textbook definition of what the report calls pilot paralysis.
They were really stuck.
They spent 18 months stuck with 3 distinct AI agents trapped in the testing phase. One for lending, one for compliance monitoring, and one for fraud detection. Their internal audit readiness was sitting at a dismal 22%. They were firmly trapped at level 1.
And when you look at the mechanics of why their audit readiness was at 22%, it connects directly to those 4 EUAI Act mandates we covered.
How so?
Well, they lacked a centralized framework. Their agent decision logs were completely unstructured. If an auditor asked why the lending agent denied a specific application, the engineering team had no way to pull a clear, human-readable logic trail from the system.
It was just a black box.
Totally. And most dangerously, their automation pipelines were entirely bypassing their human compliance teams. They had risk assessments, but they were essentially just pieces of paper sitting in a desk drawer.
So not actually linked to the software at all.
Right. They weren't digitally linked to how the system was operating in real time.
So they were burning money on these pilots for a year and a half, totally unable to deploy them. And this is where they brought in an external intervention using the Ethermind fractional consultancy approach.
Yeah, and the timeline here is wild.
It's staggering. They didn't spend another year untangling the mess. They executed a 6-week governance maturity scan, followed immediately by a 12-week implementation phase.
That speed comes directly from the specific profile of the personnel they brought in, an AI lead architect. This is a vital distinction for anyone building these teams.
How is that different from a regular IT architect?
A traditional IT architect focuses on infrastructure, server loads, how different databases talk to each other. An AI lead architect is a hybrid role bridging deep neural network technology, strict legal compliance, and overarching business strategy.
Okay, so they speak all 3 languages.
Exactly. In the Amsterdam case, this architect came in and immediately mapped the lending agent, formally classifying it as high risk under the new EU law. They then went straight into the codebase and implemented structured decision logging.
Right, fixing the black box.
Yes. They translated the EU's vague explainability requirement into a strict JSON-formatted output requirement for the agent's reasoning steps.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly, the AI was generating a clean, structured log of exactly which data points it weighed before making a decision.
And what about the human oversight mandate?
They established hard, human-in-the-loop workflows, ensuring that any loan decision approaching a certain risk threshold automatically routed to a human compliance officer for final sign-off.
The turnaround was monumental. I mean, in just a matter of months, their audit readiness skyrocketed from 22% to 87%. They officially certified at Level 3 standardized maturity.
Which is the magic number.
Right. And the ultimate payoff was that all 3 of those stalled agents finally went into production safely, backed by full regulatory confidence.
That's the ROI right there.
The report does note that their overall decision latency increased slightly because human reviews were reintroduced for those edge cases. But they went from a state of 0 return on investment to running fully operational, highly automated systems. The governance didn't slow them down. The governance was the key that unlocked the bottleneck.
And that leads to the next inevitable operational hurdle. Because that fintech company found success because they brought in a highly specialized external expert to clean house, right?
Right.
But how does a normal enterprise sustain that 87% readiness score long-term without burning out their internal engineering resources? Or becoming permanently dependent on expensive outside consultants?
Yeah, you can't just rent an architect forever.
No, you can't. Organizations cannot treat governance as a one-off episodic project where you pass an audit and then just ignore the system for a year. It has to be institutionalized into the daily workflow.
Which brings us to the architecture of an AI center of excellence. You need a dedicated internal structure to maintain the machine the architect built.
Right. The AI Center of Excellence operationalizes this through 4 specific structural pillars.
Walk us through them.
First is governance leadership. You need a chief AI officer or an equivalent executive who actually holds cross-functional authority to pause deployments if risks are detected.
So they need actual teeth.
Exactly, supported by an AI governance council. Second is risk and compliance management. This is a dedicated team running continuous impact assessments and managing those ongoing regulatory audits.
Okay, that's 2.
Third is data and model governance. This team maintains the perfect audit trail of all your training data, your system versioning, and your access controls. And the 4th pillar is continuous monitoring and observability.
The people watching for the model drift.
Right.
Yeah.
The technical team utilizing specialized software to detect anomalous behavior, catching deviations before they escalate into a reportable regulatory incident.
If you're a CTO listening to this, building out 4 new structural pillars sounds incredibly resource-intensive.
Oh, it's a huge undertaking.
You are probably looking at your internal hiring pipeline and sweating because finding a full-time, highly qualified AI governance architect right now takes at least 6 months of recruiting, and the EU deadlines have already passed.
The talent pool is incredibly small.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The AetherLink guide introduces the highly effective strategy of using fractional AI lead architects. Instead of trying to instantly hire a massive full-time staff amid a global talent shortage, enterprises are bringing in specialized consultants for just 20 to 30 hours a week.
Which is a brilliant workaround.
It is. There was a 2024 Deloitte survey highlighted in the sources showing that enterprises using this fractional AI consultancy model actually achieved their governance maturity targets 4 to 6 months faster than those attempting to rely solely on their internal full-time staff.
The mechanics of why that fractional model accelerates timelines are actually very practical. First, it completely bypasses those internal hiring bottlenecks.
You just skip the 6 months of recruiting.
Exactly. You don't have to wait half a year to recruit, interview, and onboard a new executive. You secure immediate top-tier capability on day one.
Which is crucial right now.
Second, and crucially for operations in Europe right now, it brings instant external credibility with the regulators. When European auditors review your systems, seeing that you have an established, specialized architect overseeing the governance carries immense weight.
It shows you're taking it seriously.
Right. Plus, the fractional model is designed for knowledge transfer. It allows your internal engineering teams to learn the governance frameworks directly from the consultant, actively building up your organization's own internal capability over time.
Rather than just outsourcing the compliance problem permanently.
Exactly.
So we've covered the people, the processes, and the heavy regulatory pressure. But the AI technology itself is actually evolving in a way that makes all this required governance significantly easier to manage. So what does this all mean? I'm talking about the massive shift toward test-time compute and models capable of extended reasoning.
Oh, this represents the absolute technological saving grace for companies scrambling to comply with the EUAI Act.
Because it solves the black box problem, right?
Precisely. Historically, the biggest governance nightmare with deep neural networks was the black box problem. The AI ingests a massive data set, performs billions of invisible mathematical calculations across hidden layers, and spits out a final answer.
And if you ask it why, it just kind of shrugs.
Yeah. You have absolutely no idea how it arrived at that conclusion. If an auditor asks for the logic, you can't provide it because the logic is opaque even to the developer.
Which is a huge violation of the Act.
Right. But recent advancements in test-time compute completely shatter that dynamic. Instead of attempting to make instant, opaque decisions, these new models are designed to show their work.
Oh, I love this part.
They intentionally expend additional computational resources during the actual execution of the task, the test time, to generate step-by-step decision logic before outputting the final answer.
Okay, so instead of a standard calculator that just instantly flashes the number 42 on a screen, leaving you wondering if it calculated it properly or just hallucinated the answer, test-time compute is like a mathematician writing out a multi-page proof on a chalkboard.
That's a great way to visualize it.
You can literally audit the math line by line, variable by variable.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the governance implications of that visible proof are profound. This specific technological capability perfectly aligns with the EUAI Act's explainability requirement.
It's like a match made in heaven.
It really is. When an autonomous agent utilizes extended reasoning to approve a complex lending decision, to screen a job candidate, or, as is highly relevant in Den Haag's tech economy, to generate a detailed architecture or construction design rationale, it automatically leaves a highly visible, auditable trail.
The logs just write themselves.
Exactly. Internal stakeholders and external regulators can review the specific error analysis. They can see the exact trade-offs the model considered before discarding an alternative option. The transparency isn't some external software patch you have to buy. It is baked directly into the core function of the technology itself.
Turning explainability from a massive compliance headache into an automatic native feature of the system.
It fundamentally flips the script. It makes the technology an enabler of governance rather than an enemy of it.
Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, unpacking the severe regulatory threats, the mechanics of the 5-level framework, the tactical advantage of fractional architects, and the paradigm shift of test-time compute. Let's distill all this information down. Based on everything in the AetherLink guide and the supporting data, what is your absolute #1 takeaway for the listener?
The core insight is that governance maturity is ultimately a human challenge, not just a technical one.
Okay, unpack that.
You can deploy the most advanced test-time compute models in the world, generating perfect logic trails, but if you don't have deep organizational alignment, your deployment will still fail. Change management is the actual mechanism that makes governance stick.
Meaning people have to actually use the systems properly.
Right. That requires role clarity, knowing exactly which human being holds the decision rights when an agent flags an anomaly. It requires total transparency with your engineering teams about why these strict logging rules exist, connecting their daily coding habits to the survival of the business.
They have to care about the why.
Exactly. And it requires establishing active feedback loops so that your policies continuously evolve based on real operational friction rather than just sitting static in a binder. If you treat AI governance as a one-time compliance exercise to pass an audit, you will inevitably lose. It has to become an ongoing, deeply ingrained operational habit.
That's powerful. For me, the major takeaway is the necessary mindset shift around what governance actually represents to the business. We are heavily conditioned to view compliance as a purely defensive play, protecting the downside, avoiding the massive fines, staying out of the regulatory crosshairs.
Which is valid but limited.
Exactly. The overriding theme of this deep dive is that proactive governance is now a massive competitive advantage. By embracing these maturity frameworks and hitting level 3, enterprises, especially those operating in major European hubs like Den Haag, are actively positioning themselves to dominate the market.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to attract the best enterprise partners and win the biggest client contracts because they possess the regulatory confidence to deploy these autonomous agents faster and safer than their competitors, who are still paralyzed by risk and stuck at level 1.
That perspective is crucial for any leader navigating this space. And, it leads to one final highly provocative thought for you to consider, something that isn't explicitly mapped out in the immediate regulations, but is the logical long-term conclusion of everything we've analyzed today.
Okay, lay it on us.
We discussed level 5 maturity intelligent governance, where AI itself autonomously monitors, flags, and audits your other AI systems in real time.
Right.
If the technology continues on this rapid trajectory of extended reasoning and perfect explainability logs, will we eventually see an enterprise ecosystem where humans are entirely removed from the auditing process?
Oh.
Will AI become the ultimate flawless regulator of AI, or will the law and human nature always require a person to hold the final pen?
That is a staggering paradox to end on. We start this entire journey by demanding strict human oversight to control the AI, and we might ultimately end up building an AI so exceptionally good at governance that the human becomes the slow, error-prone, weak link in the chain.
It's a wild thought.
It is absolutely something you need to keep an eye on as we move past these 2026 deadlines and into the next phase of enterprise automation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. For more AI insights, visit etherlink.ai.